You're listening to the No Name Photo Show. It's not spouse approved. It may or may not be safe for work. We'll see. And now, here's your host, Brian Matiash, and me, Sharky James. All right, Brian. Here we are again. Episode 4.
We've quadrupled our episode output.
Every episode, are you gonna say, like, we have septupled?
I only know up to quintupled.
Wonderful. This is going to be fascinating for people.
Sextupled?
Hey, we're not getting into that. It's not that kind of show.
It's true.
We're trying to maintain our clean rating here.
Easy now. So, Sharky.
All right, so, go ahead. Yes, you were going ahead and I interrupted you.
No, I was just going to bring up how... So Sharky and I, we use Trello as our kind of where we do our topics, where we keep track of topics for the episodes. And so I saw that Petapixel had covered that Canon had announced some new lenses, some new tilt shift lenses. And of course, Sharky's just like, I already did that on the Petapixel photography podcast.
I really don't talk like that.
In my head, you do.
I'm trying hard. I can't take you seriously. You have got an Ewok on your shirt right now.
Hey, you know what? The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi. All right. So, yes, they announced 3 new tilt shift lenses as if however many they had already was not enough.
Like 4 or 5.
No. But I'm just throwing some shade. And they had, and a new dual flash, macro flash.
Yeah.
And an 85-1.4.
But Don Komarechka, he shoots Nikon, right?
Yes. He's got a 1DX Mark II.
Oh, so he shoots Canon.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Also, then he'll like maybe that macro, the twin lens, because he does all the macro stuff.
Sure.
And you should check him out, Don Komarechka. We'll put him in the show notes. Actually,
I think it's doncom.com, donkom.com, or it might be .ca. He's Canadian. We're not going to hold that against him, though.
No.
There goes our Canadian audience. That's okay. They've got a good sense of humor.
They do, and they're really nice people.
They really are.
But just before we actually do begin, because we're just still kind of fumbling along, be sure to check out nonamephotoshhow.com for show notes.
Subscribe if you haven't done so already. A lot of you have. Many thousands of you already have, which is insane. So we thank you. We appreciate it.
We speak your names.
We speak your name. Yeah. if you're a Stern fan, you get that reference. Or if you follow Oprah, I guess.
Yep.
But so we thank you. So go ahead and subscribe. Let us know what you guys think. Leave us a rating and review. We're still early. This is still early in our podcast. I've only done 240 some episodes of my other podcast, so I'm still new.
But this talk show is we're getting there. Anyway, so we were talking about tilt shift lenses, and then Sharky, you came up with a really good idea for the topic. So Sharky, why don't you tell everyone?
Well, see, okay, so you've got your regular lenses, so let's say you've got an 85-1.4 like Canon just came out with, and that one is their first with image stabilization, their first 85.
Okay.
And it comes in $300 cheaper than that f1.2, which most people should not buy. Not just because it's expensive, because if you shoot at 1.2, you're going to do that once and you're going to be like, I can't nail my focus. This was a bad idea. I'm going to shoot this at f4. Well, if you're going to do that, just get the 85-1.4. So I just saved you a few $100 there. You're still going to drop like $1,700. But so you've got your regular lenses, you got your primes, you've got your zooms, and then you've got specialty lenses. And so that's tilt shifts. Let's say fish eyes, like an 8mm fisheye, a circular fisheye. For those of you who want round photos, good luck printing those, right? Like no one prints anyhow. But you've got tilt shift lenses. What else is there? There's all kinds of different kind of specialty glass that you're going to use. Well, we should get into that too. Yeah, I already said lens. Pay attention.
I didn't hear you say lens baby.
I said lens baby.
Oh, I didn't hear. I tuned it out.
You're gonna have to now. You're gonna have to listen to this episode.
I know. I know.
If I have to listen to it and edit it 1,000 times, you get to listen to it at least once. That's your punishment.
Deal.
All right. But specialty lenses like lens babies, tilt. What else is there? I know we're forgetting something.
Do we consider macro a specialty lens?
Yes. I mean, so even tilt shift and macro lenses can be used as regular lenses. And a lot of people have like a 135, right? Or a 105 macro which which is also a great portrait lens. And these new tilt shifts from Canon, they've got they've beefed up the locking the knobs and everything, and you can lock it in the 0 position, so you're 100% sure everything's aligned for you to shoot it like a regular lens. So if you've got the money, and I think all 3 of them are $2,200 a piece. Yep. So I think there's a 50, a 90, and what was the other one? Like a 1.
It was like a 135 or
135.
135, yeah, 135.
Yeah, it might be. And I think they're all f2.8.
Oh, I don't know. Actually, I'm going to bring the link up right now, but definitely, like you said, there was a 90 millimeter lens. They used to have, I think, and then there was a 24 millimeter lens that they had 2 versions of. Now we're talking about tilt shift.
Yeah, I think that's the 24. I used one of the 24 Canons when I shot Canon. A buddy of mine had, I believe it was the 24, and those are fun to use, because if you're up close on a building and you're trying to shoot it with, you got a wide angle lens, it does the keystoning thing, right? So depending on whether you tilt it up or, you want to get the whole building in the frame, so then you're tilting up and things are falling away from you or towards you, and it doesn't look like a building anymore. It looks like you're at the fun house.
Yeah.
And so when you have a tilt shift lens, you've got your camera pointing forward with the lens and everything, and then a portion of the lens can move up, left, right, whatever.
It shifts up and down.
Yeah, it shifts the focal plane, right? The optics, and so that way you can get those lines straight up and down. You could do that. What's that effect called again?
The lines straight up and down is called rectilinear.
Yes, but I'm talking about like when you're shooting from like that little, not tiny planet kind of look.
The small, with a miniature world look.
Yeah, so it makes it look like you got like little tiny cars and stuff. But see, how much are you going to do with that? That's another thing too. I'm done with this tiny planet nonsense.
Yeah, that had its moment in the sun as well. That effect, like in episode 3, we talked about HDR. I think it was like State Farm or Allstate, one of those insurance commercials in the U.S. They had a campaign, and it was all with that tilt shift effect. And you're right. It's like one of those things where, like, I think Vincent Laforet did a bunch of that, and it was like, okay, this is great. But what's funny is that the clinical, kind of like the actual clinical use of tilting. So Sharky mentioned shifting as the lens, the lens element actually goes up and down, or left and right, I guess, to get your line straight, like really straight. Tilting was originally meant to give you a deep depth of field, deeper beyond what the lens is capable of normally. So like you can get crazy. And that's when you're shooting, like when you're closing aperture. But there's this like interesting byproduct that when you open the aperture and speaking of apertures, the 50 and the 90 Sharky are 2.8 and the 135 is f4. And they're all L series, so they're Canon's higher end lens.
L for luxury.
L for luxury. Anyway, so if you're shooting above, but for me, I had 3 tilt shift lenses. This was when I was doing commercial photography, like architectural photography. And it's like one of those things, a carpenter, they have their hammer, the tools that they need. They have their
You got your ball peen hammer. I just like saying ball peen. Go ahead. Neither here nor there.
Neither here, yeah. That's ball peen.
Go ahead.
And then you've got, you've got the tools for commercial real estate, architecture. If you're doing that, like you're not, software's come a long way. Lightroom, you can, and Photoshop, you can do all sorts of amazing things with content aware corrections and lens profile corrections and fixing pin cushioning and distortion. But there's no way if I was getting paid, asking real money to do architecture, you better be sure I'd be going with a tilt shift lens. Like and it's such a niche lens. I've spoken with Sony about this too, with some of their product managers. It's like, why can't you make a tilt shift lens? Because right now you have to adapt them for Sony mirrorless cameras. They don't even think, I don't even think they make tilt shifts for their A mount, for their full frame, like DSLR camera. Do they?
The I don't think they do. The A mount that I call it. I say it has zombie status. It's still alive. Kind of stinks.
Yeah,
but right, it's still kicking. They're really not. You don't hear them ever talk about A mount, and yet they're like, no, we're still all about the A mount. No, the A mount is meant to be transitional until all the glass and everything is over on E mount, and that's where look at what they have the artisans talking about. No one's talking about the A99 Mark II or any of that's or they came out with the last camera they came out with was months ago, and it was like 18 months before that. So that tells you all you need to know. But you were essentially talking about getting it right in camera. If you're being paid, listen, if you're paying $2,200 for a tilt shift lens, you're probably doing some architectural photography. It might be for yourself. It might not be. You're not going to leave that to chance in Photoshop later. You're not going to correct that in Lightroom. You can kinda, but it's not the same thing. And
just messes with your composition. Like you can actually lose a piece of your composition because when
you lose a lot of your frame.
Exactly. It's not like it's making something out of nothing. It's actually cannibalizing part of the composition but
you know Phil? Content aware Phil? He's aware of his content.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
So stupid, but the audience is dying right now.
as you know,
I've been waiting to use that for a while, but that was appropriate. Go ahead.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry, everyone. And we just lost like 2/3 of our audience. Thank you, Sharky.
No, they're all in now. They're like, I'm a hardcore fan of this stuff. I don't know what this is I'm listening to, but I like it. It's like a train wreck, and everyone loves to watch a train wreck, unfortunately.
Oh man.
Seriously, you
hurt
lose
my soul.
No, it enriched you. You lose a lot of your frame, so you have to shoot wider. So if you are up shooting a building and you're as far back as you can get, you're out of luck. You need a tilt shift. You're just not going to make it work later. I don't care who you think you are. It's not going to happen. If you can shoot from across the street with a long lens, maybe you can make everything happen. Everything's nice up and down, left and right. You're good. But a lot of times you can't make that happen. That's when you want a tilt shift. It's a specialty lens. It's one, though, unlike a circular fisheye, which is stupid.
See,
rent that lens. Do not buy it.
You see,
unless that's all you're going to do. Circular photos. I mean, you're going to have a collection of circular photos. Who's going to like my avatar for Google Hangouts and such and Twitter? It's already round. I'm great. I'm going to shoot it with that.
Oh my god, I couldn't agree. I couldn't disagree with you. I actually have. I have my one published book, the visual palette that I have. I have an entire chapter dedicated to the fisheye lens. That's how much
the chapter no one reads, Brian.
The Funk Buster.
Everyone flips. What is it? Is that like chapter 11 or something like that? Everyone just I don't need to read it. 90% of your book they're reading, but that's the one they're skipping
so like,
it.
If there was a heat map of where people are reading, that section there would be just plain, right? Everyone would be skipping.
You're going to have to explain heat map for the people that don't understand what heat map is.
So a heat map is a graphical representation of interaction. So let's say you are on a website. Let's say you go to Amazon.com. A heat map would show where people click the most. And so like if people are clicking on the top left of the web page most, it'll be represented by like a thermal like orange. And in any areas that are kind of yellow or blue, that means that it's very, very light click. So you can see where people's eyes are going.
Thermal Orange, great band name, by the way.
Thermal Heat,
and also app. Heat maps will find that hot Sony A9 like right away.
Oh my god!
I drop that in every episode. That hot A9, Sony loves that.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a great body.
It is. Yeah, it looks really good. Yeah, feels good, man's.
So heat map. Where were you going with that? There's if your book had a heat map, it would be blue over that entire circular.
That's what you're saying. I'm sorry. Listen, I think the fisheye lens is one of the most underrated funk busting. Like if you're in a funk and you're just you can't get a good shot, you put on a 15 millimeter fisheye and everything opens up. The world opens up.
How much are you paying to bust this funk?
Well, it was a very sad day when Canon discontinued their 15 millimeter f2.8. Wasn't like an L series lens. It was like $600. You can get it used.
They weren't selling enough of them.
No,
you don't drop something that you're not selling enough of.
No, they actually doubled down and made an 8 to 15 millimeter lens. And it was L series. Now that 8 millimeter, I think 8 millimeters just insane. To me, and this, no lens has a business of going wider than 14 millimeters. You don't need 12. You don't need 8.
I don't need to see behind me and into the past.
Yeah, I don't need to see exactly into yesterday.
It captures your soul. That's how wide it is.
And because what happens is you go and you shoot it, and God forbid you angle it even slightly down. Now you've got your tripod legs in the shot, or your feet, because of these ultra wide lenses.
You better have nice feet. And why are you taking a picture? What are you with your shoes off? That's weird. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, listen, some people there's a audience for that. No, the point is that I think fisheyes, some of my favorite photos of like Empire State Building that I've shot of Mesa Arch in Canyonlands are fisheye shots. And
you're right up on it most of the time, right? You're not shooting that from a block away.
Oh yeah, no. Like any wide angle lens, you
gotta get close.
I always. Yeah, I feel like a wide angle lens, if you're shooting subjects from a distance, everything falls flat because it's so far away. But I as far as specialty lenses go, Sony doesn't have a native E-mount fisheye lens, but what they do is for the 28 millimeter lens that they have a little fisheye snap-on adapter, so it turns it into a fisheye.
Wow. So how much are these things? How much would the 18 to 15, the 8 to 15 go? How much is your typical circular fisheye, let's say? We're talking about circular fisheyes. Fisheyes,
yeah,
they're going to vary in prices, but we're hundreds.
Well, yeah, I mean the like I said, the original, I would only recommend the 15 and finding it used, like going Fred Miranda or KH or something.
And how much are you going to pay for that?
$450. I would spend $450 to $500. Depending on
so
the condition.
You better really want to shoot circular fisheyes and such if you're going to do that. I would argue just rent it. Unless you really are in a funk and you're like, you know what, I'm going to do, going back to episode 3 of this podcast, where you want to do a project. I'm shooting everything in fisheye. That's all I'm doing. Circular fisheye. I'm the circle fisheye. I'm the circle photo guy. That's me. That's my niche.
Wait. The 15 millimeter fisheye doesn't give you that circle like with that's like an 8 millimeter. 15 millimeter a 15 millimeter on a 35 millimeter frame sensor fills the whole sensor.
No, I know. I'm talking about specifically getting something as ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous. A circular fisheye lens. That's so specific, so limiting. I mean, but okay, so get it, but rent it. Rent that thing and see.
I would say
go look at photos and see if you like them
before you buy. I agree with you there.
Okay, sounds good. And if you're going to do that, use my sponsor, Borrow Lenses.
Your sponsor, not our sponsor.
Not our sponsor, but I'm going to drop it anyhow. Yeah. Use the code PP25 between now and September 30th of 2017, and you get $25 off of any order of $50 or more. All right, go ahead.
So there you go. Go try a fisheye lens or a tilt shift lens. I mean, I think everyone should. We are kind of bashing on that miniature world thing. That's easy to do when you've done it, but there's something really fantastic, that kind of discovery phase of a photographer who figures out like, oh man, they see that effect happen, and it is really cool with the miniature world effect to see it happen in camera. Because
if you have the money, buy a tilt shift lens. $2,200. It's expensive, but you can use it as a regular lens. Get one that's going to be, well, you're going to have to mess around and look online and see what would be the right focal length for you. You might want the 50, you might want the 90. I don't know, maybe you want the 135 or whatever. But
look at the 17.
Okay, and so there's that as well.
Yeah.
And okay, and then so you'll be able to get up closer on buildings and such and you just go look on Flickr or whatever, where it'll show you what camera was used, what lens was used, and I just in general, before you buy a lens, look and see other photos made with that lens to see if you're going to like that or not. And then you can go in Lightroom and it'll tell you what focal length you usually shoot at. And if you have a really, wide range of lenses, let's say you've got the Trinity, you've got the 24-70, the 70-200, and the 14-24, then you can see
14,
what you mostly
16-35. Only Nikon people have 14. Oh no. Who has Sony now has a 14-24 or 12-24.
That's right. So you were saying no. So Ryan Matthias, wrong again. No, just kidding. So you want to find out what suits you best, rent it. And then I think a lot of people, they're pricey, like I said, $2,200, but I think a lot of people would really love a tilt shift lens. You've got so many options. Just seeing that magic happen, and it really seems like magic in your camera. Seeing a building that would normally fall away or fall towards you, the lines. It's called keystoning. Seeing it, just being able to adjust that all so it's all your world is right again. Everything is straight up and down and left and right, and everything is great. And being able to do all these other things and use it as a portrait lens or a landscape lens, that's great. That's a multi-use lens right there. Anytime you can use something in multiple ways, your money's going a lot further. Whereas with a circular fisheye, you're stuck with circular photos.
You're hating
Rent
on
it once.
man.
I promise you won't use it again. Go ahead.
I disagree totally. I disagree totally.
That's what's great about this show. It's not like, yes, I totally agree. Oh, yes. Go ahead.
No, but and then the other thing, and it's interesting because now I'm thinking about it. I was going to say that if you were to define a specialty lens, it's something that has a very kind of specific purpose. But, you were even saying...
And limited use.
Limited use, right. It falls within a fine kind of constraint. But yeah, tilt shift lens, I think... I think the tilting effect is very limited. That miniature small world effect, because you have to shoot wide open aperture. You have to shoot from above. And so you're limiting yourself in terms of the subject matter. But shifting,
people shoot down like on traffic. They'll get on a building, like the 20th story, and they'll shoot down, a long stretch of road, and it looks cool. And then you're like, all right, I've done that.
Yeah.
Next.
So, but like Lens Baby, for example, they make their Composer Pro and their Sweet 50, and I think they have a Sweet 85. It's like soft.
They make a lot more lenses than you. Recently, I had the guy that created Lens Baby, maybe it was a number of months ago, do the intro for our show, and I hadn't checked out their site in a while, and I hadn't seen anything. I guess they haven't submitted it to Petapixel, so there's a lot of new lenses that I just personally didn't know about, and they've got dozens of them, it seems, in every possible mount. And
yeah. I mean,
lensbaby.com. They're not sponsoring the show. No one's sponsoring the show, but not yet. But you gotta check that out. There's so many possible lenses that you got with Lens Baby.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I think like the tilt shift or the tilting, or even fisheye, it's an effect. So like, you're not going to go and shoot 1,000 photos with soft focus, but if you apply it in the right way, in the right context, it can complement a larger body of work really, really well. Same thing, I think, with a fisheye lens or tilt shift lens. Like it just shows versatility. But if it's all you're doing, then that effect kind of will get old.
It's like doing sepia. You're not going to sepia every photo.
Yes.
That's when you're shooting like a cowboy scene. You're like, all right, it's now 1874.
Right. And you have the bright vignette where it's instead of it darkening, it's like an old timey kind of wanted poster type of thing. Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. So that's,
what other kind of specialty lenses? We're trying to think of, there's.
Well, you know what there are? There are those like,
I was thinking infrared cameras and stuff, but especially, let's talk about specialty cameras. Well, getting ones that are full spectrum versus, infrared and being able to shoot,
I think,
things that are different. Those are specialty that's all in right there. You're not going to convert your D810 to infrared.
Well, unless you put a filter on the front, but that's always a pain because you have to like focus and expose and then put the filter on, because once you put it on, you can't see through it. But I think converting cameras, because I don't know if how many people in the audience can relate, but like I would oftentimes sell camera bodies. Like I'd use it, and when it was time to upgrade, I would sell it. But there's a point where, like a point of diminishing returns, where what you would get for a used body, for selling your body, it's not worth selling it.
Selling your body? We're not going there. Go ahead. Selling your camera.
Stay in school. Is selling your camera body. I had an A7, so original OG A7.
Yeah.
Rather than sell it, I sent it to
Life Pixel.
Not Life Pixel. It was whoever Sony used, because they did it for me, and they converted it to infrared. And so I'm using this. I don't know how old the A7 is now, like 5 years old. But it works perfectly, And so when I go out on a landscape shoot, especially because typically it's like landscapes that resonate really well and respond well to infrared. It's just like I said, how the Canon, the 15 millimeter fisheye, I call that the funk buster. Same thing with infrared. It's just like one of those specialty things where if you're just kind of like hitting a wall, that sometimes it changes a scene so dramatically. But like you said with sepia, you're not going to be shooting everything infrared.
You can overdo it, just like with HDR. A little bit goes a long way. It's like using WD-40. You're not spraying a ton of that on your on your what do you call it, on your door hinges. Just a little bit. You want just a little bit,
just to get the creak out.
That's right.
So yeah, I mean, in terms of other specialty cameras, I don't know if you want like action cams, sports cams, like those. I don't think that I would consider those.
Yeah, those are. I was thinking more along the lines of you can like lifepixel.com has been around for it might be like 15 plus years or so. You send your camera into them, you can get it done as infrared, full spectrum. They've got a number of different options. These are also things that you can rent.
Yes. Yep.
Borrow lenses or wherever else. And if you're in a funk, you might not want to send your camera in and spend hundreds of dollars to get it converted. Drop $100 or so. And during the fall, when the foliage is, everyththing's changing and changing, right? And then and I'm not going to sing the song, I promise.
Please don't.
And then, we haven't paid for the rights for it. And then you can change it so you can shoot infrared.
Yeah.
So just get one that's converted already, rent it, go shoot it one weekend, and then call it good, move on to something else.
Yeah, I mean, it's an economical way to kind of keep the creative juices flowing. For me, it was just like when I saw the A7, I didn't want to either. I was going to sell it at a loss, not at a loss, but not make much money off of it, or just plunk down a little bit of a couple $100. So I don't want to make.
Well, you revived it essentially. You gave it new life with a different purpose, and then so you've got it in your bag. Like your bag's not heavy enough. So you've got, but you're going to bring it with you when you're going to go shoot landscape. So you've got it in the bag, ready to go. It's a utility lens. It's a go-to special, like football teams have a specialty guy, he's a kicker, right. He's, whatever. And so that's what you have right there.
Yep.
So for you, it made sense because you do a lot of landscape stuff. For your average person who's maybe working a 9 to 5, they're only shooting on the weekend, renting it would make sense unless they want to do a project where they shoot all in infrared, which would be an amazing, great project. You don't see a lot of that. You really don't see a lot of infrared photography, and that's not for a reason. It's not because it's horrible. It's real. It's beautiful. It's
when it's done right. It looks magical.
You get in the winter time and everything too. I mean, everything just goes white, and you've got pink foliage. It's craziness.
Yeah, it's
you got to check it out.
There is a learning curve to it, which it should be mentioned.
That's part of the fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. I'm not trying to dissuade. It's just it's when you see a beautiful infrared online, someone shares one. More often than not, that's not what it looked like right out of the camera. So, if you're looking for an outlet, like Sharky said, it's a really, really viable option.
That's good. So, I can't think of any other specialty cameras and lenses right now. But Nikon's got that D810A, the one that's for astrophotography, and it's
right.
It has some special filtration inside, in front of the sensor, I believe, that makes it so. Or they removed something.
I thought they removed the anti-alias filter. Which,
well, it's not just that. That's not going to give you anything that's necessarily. Well, they probably did that. I'm pretty sure they did that, but I think they also added a special filter that makes it so you can cut through maybe some city light pollution, or and then just bring out the stars and everything, and like those star-eating Sonys.
There's also Leica makes their like black and white cameras. They're like monochrome cameras. Can't even shoot in color. So that's kind of a specialty. You really want to be in.
Absolutely a specialty lens.
Yeah.
And you know, okay, so if you don't, if you're not a dentist, and so thus, you know, a Leica owner, you are a rich guy, you can shoot with a Fujifilm or just about any camera these days. You can shoot in monochrome mode. And as long as you're shooting in RAW, you know, it's telling, when you get in the Lightroom, it's telling it, okay, this is monochrome. This is how to change it. But it's not baked in. But if you're shooting JPEG,
then it's baked in.
It's baked in right there. So you have it, and you can even shoot, if you want, you can shoot in sepia tone. I don't know why you'd want to, but you want to see your world as it was, not in the 1800s, but
when Wyatt Earp was around.
I guarantee you, in 1854, it was in color. It wasn't sepia.
Hey, partner.
So I don't know. We've beaten this horse.
Yeah,
that horse.
Sharky. Let's do it. Let's move on.
I want to talk about. We could do a whole episode on this, so we don't want to go too deep in the woods here. But going pro, whatever that means, versus enjoying photography. What to you? What does going pro mean? What does that even mean?
Going pro means to me that you have elected to make photography your primary source of income. Primary.
And you've probably quit your job unwisely.
Yes, you are. You've quit your job.
You have no benefits. You're going it alone.
Well, no, you exactly. You ideally, and I was going to say smartly, but you know, you have incorporated in some form. You either have a limited liability corporation, an LLC, or an S corp. That's what I have as an S corp. You know, I pay taxes as a business. I have like a business checking account. I have a business credit card.
And the two do not mix.
And never the two shall mix. But you know, let's say I do a job for $1,000, I immediately take 30% of whatever's income, so $300 that goes into my savings account. That gets saved for taxes because you have to pay. Guess what? $1,000. Someone pays you $1,000. You know, even if you're working, if it's you're not incorporated yet, you have to claim that. So, and because I have an account. That's the other thing. You have an accountant. You have someone who helps you manage your money. My accountant, the one edict I gave her is just keep me out of jail. I don't care if I have to pay. Tell me what to pay. Be smart about it. You know. But yeah. So as a professional, it's not just. You don't just take the photos or whatever it is as the hobby, or you know, for the love. Of course, that ideally, if you're a professional photographer, you still love photography. But if I don't make money, I don't eat. I don't get to pay my bills.
So it's a great weight loss program, is what you're saying.
It can be.
It can be.
It can. Oh, unfortunately, though, like McDonald's is super cheap. But so
your children will not appreciate that, though.
No, no. It's so yeah. I mean, and there's it's not just about the photography. It's everything that comes with it. It's the marketing side of things. It's
you're going to be working 12+ hour days and dealing with nonsense. You're going to be dealing mostly with business and not with actually taking photos. So The reason I want to get into this is. Does someone even want to go pro? A lot of people they quit their job, they go pro, and they decide, you know what? I now it's become a job.
Right.
I don't enjoy it as much anymore because now I have to deal with taxes and health insurance and stress and just all the I mean, we pay ridiculous amount of money each month for insurance.
Yeah, as a self-employed person,
crazy.
It's really. The way that I see it is, it's all of the success and all of the failure is on you. And so and you're totally right. 12-hour, 13-hour days. I'm not in front of Lightroom for 12, 13 hours. I am, I'm writing an article for Digital Photo Pro magazine. I'm prepping for the podcast, which indirectly, hopefully, will lead to income as we get, the show gets bigger and we bring on sponsors or we take on advertisements. That will bring money for Sharky and me. There's, actually, I completely I'm trying to think of the things I did today. Today was mostly writing an ebook, creating a product, getting a newsletter, paying for the newsletter. Yeah. There's a lot of work that if I had a full-time job, I could take it or leave it. I can choose you know what? I don't need this stuff. But
they say if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. In other words, it doesn't seem like work to you. I work 14 to 16 hour days and have for 3 years now. And you will not hear me complain about that. I might be tired, especially since we took on doing this podcast and all the technical stuff to ramp up to what we're doing. I am so tired lately. But you know what? I do it happily because I love doing it. And I have fun doing it. And I think I'm pretty good at it.
And that's the thing is, and you are good at it. Some people, it becomes a calling. And the thing is, for photography, for example, I think what a lot of people, the thought process is they happen to be a good photographer. Oh, I'm a good photographer. I'm a great photographer. I'm just going to make money.
Your friends and family will tell you that on Facebook. You should be pro. You should be charging for this stuff.
And the thing is that being a good photographer or being, a great photographer, that's barely considered minimum bar to entry. Meaning you have to be, it's like one of those goes, just like, for instance, this podcast, we have to be entertaining. We have to be able to put sentences together. We have to interact with each other. We have to be able to edit the videos.
The audio has to be good. We have to bring it. You have to, and in an age, especially in photography, in an age where everyone is a photographer, you have to be really darn good if you're going to make a living at it.
Right.
You have to know your craft inside and out. You're always still learning, but you're going to be the person that people come to. If people are coming to you to learn stuff and you're explaining it to them very well, you've got it down, and you take really, really good photos, and people want to pay you, and you're getting a decent amount of money, then, you've got a 9-to-5 job, then you start considering. I think it's when it gets to a tipping point where you're getting so much work and you're having to turn people away because you don't have the time, then you consider, you don't necessarily make the jump, you consider whether or not you want to be in the photography business.
Yeah. I mean, it took me years of, especially when I was living in Massachusetts, and it started becoming clear that the real estate or the landscape stuff, we were talking about this earlier with tilt shift lenses, even that, I love architecture. I knew that much about myself, and I was good at it. And I had to hustle, meaning I would go to new restaurants that just opened up. And this was when websites, like I was saying, I think in episode 3, blogs were still big and websites were bigger than social media. People needed photos, and they need photos today for their social media pages. But I would go and I would take these photos, and it got to that point, just like you said, Sharky, where eventually I think it was Intercontinental, my biggest client.
Hotel Intercontinental.
I had to make a decision, but that was a while. I mean, I had shot a bunch of, and you price yourself accordingly. You price yourself to what you think you're worth. And so you kind of know, once you're ready, because you already have your earning income. You don't just start a cold start. You ever take a pressure washer or a lawnmower and you just pull it, yank it without priming it? Nothing happens. The engine just seizes. That's kind of with pro. You don't just jump into hey, I'm going to be a pro photographer, whatever that means even anymore. there's so much. The taking of the photos is the furthest thing on my mind when I wake up. Like, I don't just go out and drive around and shoot. That to me is not a sustainable business model. I sit down and I'm creating content left and right, and that's my personal business. Other photographers, yeah, they do commercial work, but man, it's a tough field to be in right now.
You have to differentiate yourself, and then also, social media, build a following. Yeah, there's a lot more to do these days, and I think a lot of people feel like the point at where they feel successful is where someone's willing to pay them a decent amount of money. And maybe you don't need to judge yourself that way. Maybe just, doing great photography and getting kudos from people and likes on Facebook and whatever is enough. And keep your day job, enjoy photography. Don't make it a business unless you have to just want to really put yourself out there and take some risks. And, the upside is there's a lot of potential there. But, in photography, there's a ceiling. You're not going to make millions of dollars in photography, most likely.
I think it's photography, working for yourself for photography shouldn't be any different than working for yourself in any other industry, where I think it's why photography specifically, this is such a unique concept, is because that barrier to entry that you mentioned in episode 3, where anyone can become a photographer. So it's like the aspiration of becoming one is that idea can get formed a lot easier. Whereas, like, let's say I want to be a carpenter.
It seems reachable, like being a doctor or a carpenter, whatever you said. You think you buy a camera? I'm a photographer. It's a lot easier. Right. That seems like an easier jump. People might be miserable in their job, and it's like, you know what? I enjoy photography. I have a camera. I can do that. I'm not going back to school to be a doctor. That's too much work.
Yeah, I mean, I envy hobbyist photographers, and I don't say hobbyist like it. I think, unfortunately, that word has such
enthusiast photographers,
even enthusiast, amateur, which means for the love of.
Yeah.
I would, when I'm out, if I'm out shooting, I'm not shooting just for the hell of it. I'm shooting for whatever reason, either to get content for an article, for a blog post, a video tutorial. The enjoyment of it is like a happy byproduct.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if you're
on a mission,
yeah,
you're knowing what you're not, because you're a busy guy. You're not going out and just shooting willy nilly.
No.
I'm out. You're not going to yield anything out of that.
No, I need to have a forecast. Like, behind the camera here, I've got my whiteboard and I have everything forecasted of what I need to do.
You might even check the forecast.
I better check the forecast.
You better check the forecast.
Yeah, if I need to shoot something for clouds, I need to make sure there are clouds. So yeah, I mean, the whole professional versus, it is I wonder if any other vocation or whatever has the same problem. Like, what about like comic book, like illustrators?
Yeah.
Like, are there people who have the same hangups about being whatever professional illustrator means? Like, or is it just kind of like, yeah, there's a clear delineation?
I think it's something unique to photography. I can't think of something else. I don't think you're in your garage swinging a hammer and you're like, you know what? I think I'm going to build houses. Like, I'm pretty good at this swinging. Like, I hit the nail like almost every time. I think I can do this. And a nail gun, I mean, that's easy right there.
Oh man, yeah,
it's a photography thing.
I think so. I think it is. When you marry it with other professions like journalism and stuff like that, it is. I really, and as another, like, I have a big bone to pick with all these blogs that,
like, Petapixel and F-stoppers
and everything.
We'll get into that in another episode for sure.
Well, where you have these people who, consider themselves journalists, and meanwhile you see some of the drivel that they put out. It becomes an overglorified, tabloid. But in that case, where I think that you're like, you want to say you're a professional photographer, you want to charge money, take money for your services. That's great. That's between you and the person paying you, and whether, you meet your obligations to a point of satisfaction. But like when you're like a journalist, and to me, that's like you're crossing a line. Because you're not holding yourself to the standards of a journalist in a lot of these cases. But yet you want your press passes, you want your creds, your badge, and you want to get out and see things. Like, I don't know. That to me is where there needs to be a clear delineation between, a blogger and a journalist.
We live in a different world. Anybody can put up a blog. Anybody can go ahead and request credentials. If you have a popular enough website or social media channel, you might get a press pass to one of the expos or conventions. It's, again, it's a value trade kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. We'll get into that. We should get into that for a whole separate episode. Talk about Petapixel, talk about f-stoppers, talk about Luminous Landscape, all the ones out there, and get into that maybe a little more deeply before we get too off the rails. Unless you had something else to say.
No, that was it.
All right. We should probably talk. Oh, go ahead.
No. I want to close this out by saying, and I think you agree with me, like, it's not in no way dissuading anyone from wanting to pursue their a career in photography. When it works, it's really enriching, but just know that it requires a serious amount of discipline, not as a photographer. In fact, it's like 10% is photography, but as a business person, treating yourself as an organization, protecting yourself by incorporating, paying your taxes, getting an accountant, paying for your health insurance. Let's not forget that. So just don't make that step very lightly. But if you're going to do it like all in.
You got to be all in, and you're going to be working hard, and you're not going to get much sleep. You're not going to want to go out and shoot because you're tired. So you definitely have to consider whether or not it's something you even want to do. So,
all right.
Let's talk about gear.
You
want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's on my shelf?
What's on your shelf?
So half the times it is, half the times it's not. Hey, the XT2 last episode, that's on my shelf. This time it's actually my shelf. One of my shelves. I'm talking about and it's something I turned you on to, the Rubbermaid Fast Track system.
Oh my God. Yes.
It is. I don't know how I discovered this, and you're going to get obsessed if you get into this. So Rubbermaid, they make stupid things for your kitchen and whatever, but they also make this modular organization system for your garage that's based on these rails that you screw into. Like the ones I think the ones I have, are the large ones, are like 84 inches or so.
Yes.
And they screw into the studs, and once they're in there, and you got like 8 or 10 or whatever. And once they're in there, that's part of the wall. And so it's this metal rail, and then you put this, it's like a grayish kind of blackish kind of gray, however you want to call it, thing that slides over it that just makes it look nicer. And then from there, you have down rails that you can put, or you have hooks. Like, for instance, in my garage, I've got ones to hang all my, lawn care tools and stuff, the weed whacker and all that stuff, and snow shovels and whatever. There's a whole winter section, etc. Now, in my home office, in the closet here, I've got a closet that runs the length of this room, which is awesome. It's huge. And I've got a Rubbermaid Fast Track system in there. And so I've got these down rails, and then from there, I've got small shelves and larger shelves, these kind of like almost baskets that has kind of like a gate opening on the front. It kind of lifts up a little bit and outward. And so, it's a little bit expensive. It can get expensive when you get deep into it. But, buy once, cry once. You're going to have it for a long time. You could get shelves, and I've got a shelf here in my office that I got at Costco. It's like about $50 or $60 or so. It's a steel shelf, and it's 5 shelves, 5, planks or whatever. And it's pretty deep. But when you put stuff on there, you kind of you forget about stuff. It kind of gets pushed to the back. You can't see it as much. The Fast Track system shows you see your stuff a lot easier, and it's more utility, and it's more modular. You've got a bunch of different containment systems, etc. So you got little ones that are meant for like screws and nuts that you can put like little, photo things in there, little adapters and such, and you can label it, and it's great. I think it's just if you want to put your lenses on there like you do, I noticed in your closet you've got all your lenses on these shelves. And so obviously this is not a secure system. Someone breaks in your house, they're like, "Oh, thank you. You presented this very nicely for me. I'll take this, this, and this." So it's not a protective gear system, but I
don't know anyone who, unless you have a lock, and it's not hard to put a lock on the closet, but I came into the Fast Track system because of Sharky. When I moved here to Lincoln, I needed some sort of system to store things, and so he sent me photos of the Fast Track system, and I became obsessed. So, I'll post photos on the show notes at nonamephotoshop.com for this episode.
You'd send me pictures from the Home Depot, and you're like, "Damn you!"
Yeah, but you know what? As soon as you said you're going to get hooked, I was in the Home Depot and I saw some other people looking at it, and I'm like, "Guys, trust me, get it." It's it's that modular, the ability to kind of like put a hook here. Like I have my tripods hanging on hooks. So I agree with the Fast Track. Great selection. It's one of those things where if you just want to tidy up a closet with your photo gear, and you'll see, I'll show you the photo of my closet. Everything is in its place. It looks really nice, and it's easy to find what I need.
It's not just easy to find where everything is it gets a lot of stuff off the floor, off of shelves where you're not making the best use of space.
Right.
And it's right there. The wall space is going to be there regardless. You might as well put stuff on it and securely. And it's just nice to have.
Yeah.
So there you go. The Rubbermaid Fast Track system. So you'll easily spend hundreds over time.
Yeah.
But it's worth it. Now, what's your pick?
My pick is a lens. And it's a lens that I'm excited to use because I'm going to visit my family in New York City in a few days. And when I travel to New York, for example, I want just light. I'm not bringing a bunch of stuff. So this current lens that I have here is my Zeiss, and it's the Loxia 21 millimeter f2.8. And the Loxia it's a manual focus only, which I'm okay with. I don't mind it, especially with
got focus peaking. Yeah.
Because you have focus peaking. Which focus peaking basically draws a colored outline over whatever's in focus. And it's fast, and it's super light, and it's super small. So like this to me is what full frame mirrorless is all about. As you have like Sony and stuff coming out with their faster lenses, their 24-70 and 16-35s, they're getting bigger and heavier. So you're creeping back into the DSLR days with that weight. So this is a 21 millimeter. They have a 35, a 50, I think an 85. 85. And I'm just going to take, that's the 21. I'm going to take the 35 with me. It's just, aperture is controlled on the lens, physically. Focus ring is really smooth. And so it's just one of those things where I'm probably going to do more street photography and some architecture. And I'm not going to even use a tripod. It's just going to be my camera in my hand. And I just want something that won't make me feel exhausted after an hour of roaming around the city.
And that'll do it. That's a great pick.
Thanks.
How much does that lens go for new?
I want to say maybe 1,800 or so. Loxia 21 millimeter.
Zeiss.
It's from B&H. Well, $1,500.
Good amount of money, but a great sharp lens, a beautiful lens.
Yeah, the Loxia system is really nice. And if you want autofocus on the full frame E-mount, you'll go with the bodice.
We should talk one episode about the difference between bodice and Loxia and what, because that confuses people.
They're bird classifications.
But why there's the, you got L series in Canon, and so what a bodice is versus a Loxia. Like, is it a different line? What does it mean?
Yeah, I'll get some. I could probably get one of the product managers. We can have them as a guest.
That would be awesome.
Wouldn't that? That would be really cool.
That'd be cool. We should do that. All right, I think we've gone long enough this episode 4.
Yeah, I think it was a good one.
Let's call it good.
Yeah, so everyone, just to remind you, head over to nonamephotoshop.com to get show notes and subscribe. Be sure to subscribe. And then we're on social media everywhere at No Name Photo Show, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
Tell your photography friends. If you like this show, if you like my show, the Petapixel Photography Podcast, do that. Go to Matias.com, which is Brian's site. We never mention your site.
That's all good.
You can go there, sign up for his newsletter, check out his blog. A bunch of other nonsense he got going on over there.
Sure. Thanks so much for listening to the No Name Photo Show. Sharky and I would be thrilled if you would subscribe in whatever podcast app you're using and tell a friend. So how about we do this again in the next episode? Yeah, let's do that.